I'm Brent Peterson. I thought he came to talk about running, but then it's running anyways. I've been involved in the Magento community for a long time now, and I'm passionate about how things work and making things better. So my talk today is going to be about how we can make projects better, or how a developer can contribute to a project, and how this project is going to affect the end user, how the project's going to affect a developer, how that whole workflow works, and how we can make it better. So the title of my project and the theory behind this is when you start a project, sorry, I'm used to having a wireless, and I'm going to run around the stage. So the idea is that we start our project with the idea of having a party at the end of the project. So you have the mindset of going into the project of having a cigar and bourbon party. And we actually had a project that we launched, and we had a cigar and bourbon party at the end. It was really fun. So I thought, wow, when we start our project with this at the end, with this idea. All right, so we've got a new client. The client wants to build a website to sell cigar and bourbon. Right? So, hey, let's get started. Our new client is Kim. Kim has this idea. They're going to sell cigars and bourbon. Well, Kim is very intimate with cigars and bourbon. Strong knowledge of the product, knows all about them, has a lot of consumption of the product. He's excited to get this launched. He's excited to launch other things. Now, Kim may have some unrealistic expectations, though, of how this project's going to roll out. So he's come to us as Magento to help him launch this project. And he didn't really come to us, by the way, if there's anybody from the government here. So he may have unrealistic expectations. So it's our job as an agency, as a developer, as a project manager, to try to keep everything in line and keep things moving. So this guy, or our client, if left to his own devices, will dictate how the project's going to roll. And, you know, there's a part too that he has nuclear weapons, which at the end could be a problem for us. So we're going to sit down with him and kind of figure out what is his expectations of the project, and what are our expectations, and how can we align all those together. So he wants cutting 1980s design. We can do that. He may have up to 10 users a month. Okay, great. He wants it done in 2 days. All right, well, this is going to be a problem. We want to go and to do some negotiations with the client to get everybody in line on how this project's going to work. Helping the client to align with us and us to align with the client is going to be the key to having a successful project. So we want to keep things moving along. We're going to do that by having a clear statement of work and an SLA that's going to be the underpinning of that. So the SLA, if anybody doesn't know, is a service level agreement or a master agreement. And then on top of that, we're going to put an SOW, which is a statement of work. That SOW will be the work we're going to do, and the best thing to do, we can explain to the client that's all we're going to do. And what we try to do is make sure that the client knows that only the work we're doing is in that SOW. This is one of my favorite quotes, because in any SOW, there are knowns, or any work that you're doing for a project, there are knowns, there are things we know, there are known unknowns. That is to say, there are things that we know don't know, but there are also unknown that well, whatever. You guys can read. This happens in every project. At the end of the project, you are told that something was supposed to be part of it that nobody told you about after launch, and then the client says, you should have known that. Well, nobody knew it. Anyways, this is the thing that we always want to overcome, and we want to make sure that everybody's happy, and we're all going to have this bourbon and cigar party at the end. So we sat down with Kim and we said, okay, we're going to use Agile. It's this great methodology. We showed him this slide. He said, oh, great. Showed him this slide. Oh, I don't care. All right, so we get to the point where we want to actually execute our project. And we are an Agile shop, so we do burn down charts. We show them we're going to have this point we're going to start at with hours on the left, and we're going to have a certain amount of days or weeks on the bottom. It's more than 2 days. And we're going to be able to complete all this work. So we get started on the project. Right away, they start adding things to the project. So the bottom line in yellow is work that's being added to the project. The red line is actual work, and the blue line is how the anticipated time. And we can see right away that we're getting off base. So what do we do? We continue kind of working the same way. We've added hours or added people or however we want to add it, but our client keeps adding things. So we're kind of really we're going to have a problem. We're never going to meet it. So what do? We can run, and I will say that I always try to get a running slide in all of my presentations. So this is my shameless slide of running, and that is Mark Lavelle. So I figured we'd throw this one in. The client suggested maybe we can invent time, and I said, well, in the future they're going to invent time, but right now we haven't been able to do it, so that's not an option. So at this point, we'll take a short intermission. We're going to talk about how we can help the client, or how the client is going to, if left to their own, they're going to be able to dictate the process. So in any project, they're filled with real things that happen. So a project has real things that happen. We know that. There's things we can't anticipate, so we need to account for those. There's things that are unplanned. So how do we deal with that? Well, if we report often, like we tell the client, hey, something happened, we want to make sure that they understand that something happened. And whether it's good or bad, we want the client to come back to us and say, or we want to tell the client that this thing is going to take longer than we thought. And then we're going to report to them some more. So we want to report as often as possible and make these reports as simple as possible. We don't want to overwhelm the project manager, but we want to have the client as closely aligned with us as possible so that nobody ever gets off the track. And then, not to scare project managers, but let's report some more to make sure that everybody understands what's happening. And then at the end, all these reports that we created, so if it's a 12-week project, we could have 12 weeks worth of daily reports, plus a weekly snapshot, plus a monthly report. All these things are going to come together as a story. And that story is going to be something that the client can't refute, that we can point back to objective things that happened during this project, and those things are going to be the story that's going to tell the project. And again, not to scare our project managers, but this data you're giving the client should be easy to come up with. So it's not something that's long and complicated, it's just something data that we give every day that says, hey, we're waiting for this or whatever. Okay, so I've got two real life stories that we're going to tell about a client. The first one is when the client is just left on their own. They tell you they want a bunch of things done. The client is then left on autopilot. So now the client has told us they want to do something. We go ahead and start doing it. They ask for more things. We just keep doing it. Maybe in scope, maybe out of scope, but hey, we're still working. We're getting things done. Or maybe we're late, maybe at this point because they keep asking for more things. We wait to the end of the project to tell the client, hey, all these things that you gave us actually caused us to be late. They're going to give a delay. At that point, since we really haven't communicated any of those things to the client, they don't really care. They've already made up the story in their head of how everything went. And there's nothing objective except for maybe trying to dig out some emails or remember some phone calls. There's nothing objective that we can point back to that tells the client, hey, this is what happened and this is how it happened. So the result, we have a problem. All right, so we have an involved client. We have a client that we're working with every day, and we're telling them things. So now they're going to tell us things that they want. We're going to make sure that we understand what they want. We're going to spend some extra time up front planning these things. They're going to ask for things in the project. They could be in or out of scope. But as soon as somebody gives us something that's out of scope, we're going to tell them immediately that this thing is out of scope. And whether they agree to it or not, at least somebody's brought it up and we've told them. Because now there's a point where we can negotiate this delay. We can negotiate with the client, hey, maybe something has to come out, maybe something can go in, we can add some more men or people, or however it happens. The result, and I didn't know that Sherry was going to use this slide, sorry, but same picture. We have a party. I don't listen. Okay, so now the rest of the story. All right, so now we've been able to get Kim under control. We've stopped him adding things every day, and we've added some people to the project, which allows us to do more hours during the day. And we've been able to launch, or be able to get to launch. So now we're at a launch, and now our documentation and reporting doesn't stop, because now we want to write a launch plan. We want to have a plan about how we're going to test the site after we've launched, whether it's automated or manual. And we want the client to be intimately involved in this so they understand what's going to happen. All this is going to be compiled into a big document. And wouldn't it be great to now hand your client this thick book of, who knows, 100 pages of documentation that is a story of their project. It's a real life, how everything went. And if the project is a month late, this thing tells us why it's a month late. The report gives you objective things that you can point to that support whatever the summary is about that project. And what do we have? We have a party. And this is a real life party that we had here in Austin with cigars and bourbon. And this is where the idea came from. Hey, let's start this party by let's start this project with the idea at the end of the project we're going to have a party. So I started thinking, wow, what do we need? What are all those things that we need to do to make this a successful project? And my thought is always been, we need to compress the time that it takes to get some communication between a client and a developer to as little as possible. And that allows us to be happy and have a party.